Welcome back to the Real Cast podcast, coming to you high from atop the Castanetti Realty Group headquarters, world headquarters, in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. I'm Gary Kelley, and I am joined by
Siobhan Weber.
What's your job here?
Well, I wear.
What's your title?
My title, VP of Business Development.
Woo!
Oh, fancy, right?
That's pretty impressive.
Thanks. We got
And what's
some.
my title? Agent.
Awesome, agent.
Agent. All right. Obviously, we like to have a light discussion, but I want to touch on something a little serious. And I want to talk about your feelings.
Oh. Does that mean I have to have feelings for us to be able to talk about them?
Good. I like that. So, right now, the world sucks.
Oh.
Okay? We're recording this the morning after some guy decided to shoot up a bowling alley up in Maine. You've got Hamas tossing bombs at Israel, and Israel saying, what? And tossing bombs back and threatening to roll into Hamas and just, bulldoze the whole place. You've got Ukraine. You've got, the presidential election should, big debate at breakfast this morning with the guys. Should Trump go to jail or not?
Oh.
And my contention is he probably did bad, but he shouldn't go to jail in this country because that's a bad optic for the world. But I don't want to talk politics.
Oh, yeah, let's not.
Okay? No, it's like,
Yeah.
presidents in other countries get locked up, not in our country.
Right.
Not that he's innocent. So anyway, all of that going on, and you've got first-time buyers out there with interest rates that are above 8%, which, my first house, my interest rate was 18%. Now,
okay, was the price like $89,000?
My first house, it was $50,000. Big difference.
Big difference.
And I did an adjustable rate mortgage, and every year it dropped. So I was pretty happy with that. What are you telling buyers now? Because what I'm seeing is a lot of buyers are just scared.
Yeah.
They haven't seen this before. I may not have seen all the things going on in the world, and I was able to go bowling and not have someone shoot at me and all that stuff. I don't even want to make light of that, okay? Because when I went bowling, I was in college, and it was an excuse to drink.
Sure.
That's what it was. So I feel sorry for those people, and I feel sorry for the people in the Mideast and all that. What do we tell our first-time buyers today?
Yeah.
What's the messaging to them?
So not to liken first-time homebuyers to children, but I do have about 100 children, as you know, which really equates in the real world to 5 sons, but it feels like 100. And I think there's uncertainty.
I don't know how you could sleep at night.
Oh, going to sleep's not the problem, right? It's waking up. No, I'm just kidding. So I think it's like that reassurance, right? That the world can be a scary place. That's always been true, right? Historically, if we look from a global perspective, I think things are actually in a lot of ways better than they've ever been. We've increased our vocabulary as a society to be able to talk about some of the mental health challenges that face us, some of the communication and learned behaviors, right, that feed into our actions. So, and then some of the violence that has been ongoing for decades, if not hundreds of years. So within that context, I think the goal is to focus on what's in front of you, right? And what's in front of us is a volatile real estate market, for sure. But it's one that the old idiom, if the best time to buy real estate was always yesterday. That is always true. They are not making
We use the same thing when
land.
someone says, when should I sell my house? The best time to sell your house is the day you put it on the market.
That's it. Right. Exactly. You don't want that downtime in between. For most people, it's their biggest purchase. So it is scary even without, consumer confidence being layered on as a factor. And so we talk about dollars and cents. We talk about economic trends, and we talk about things that are provable from a historic perspective. So for example, we as a country have had 6 recessions or so in the last 40 years. In only 2 of those have home prices actually been affected, and in maybe only 1, anecdotally, have rates been affected. The only recession out of the last 40 years, in 2008, that was driven by
The Great Recession.
well, that was mine. That was what hit me the most. So yes, the Great Recession. But that was driven by subprime lending, right? And predatory practices that were driven directly within the real estate market.
remember getting a mortgage back in that era.
Who didn't?
And I had gone to work for a real estate company, the other CRG, City Realty Group in Brighton. And we were going to buy, we bought hundreds of properties. And this was my first one buying with them. And so you got a personal mortgage. And I remember being on the phone with the mortgage originator, who's still in business and still out there, and
shall remain nameless.
If I used his name, many people would know it actually. He said, "What income do you have?" And I'm an honest guy. I said, "I have no income. I just went to work with these guys. I haven't, we haven't made money on anything yet." "Oh, you must have something." And I said, "Well, I do have this little lawn business that I do, basically to get me out of a building. So on the weekends, I put fertilizer down on people's yards. Just fun." And he said, "Well, what do you make at that? 70,000 a year?" And I said, yeah, right. And he writes that down.
Excuse me, leading the witness.
No, but he was.
70 sounds like a nice good number.
Are you kidding me? And it was that kind. Did they ask for documentation? Nope. It's like. It was so easy as to be stupid.
Yeah.
And
it was stupid. Lo and behold, it was stupid, right? So that's not allowed anymore. And the other thing I would say is that, and it all follows on, one to the other, right? So when you have consumers who are barely qualifying, truly not qualifying, but they're getting into homes, they don't have cash, they don't have equity in their home, right? So if they bought the home for $400,000, they owe $398, so they have $2,000 in equity. That's sort of their net wealth in that scenario. These days, that's not the case at all. There's a lot of cash in the market. The average homeowner nationwide has about $290,000 in equity, which, comparatively speaking, the average renter has a household net worth of $6,700. So that becomes a real challenge when we're thinking about how you build future wealth.
It really does. I had someone call me last night. "Gary, I'd like to buy a house." "Great." And I said, "Have you, we chatted about, he's from Leominster and had certain requirements." And I said, "Great." I said, "Have you talked to a loan officer? Or how do you intend to pay for this?" And the answer was, "Well, I know what I can afford. It's 3 times my salary. That's what I can afford." "Okay. I'd really like to have you talk to a mortgage person."
Yes.
Because first of all, those kinds of rules of thumbs aren't going to stand up to scrutiny with an underwriter
anymore, right?
And the other thing is, there are programs out there, first time buyers, USDA, which amazes me. In this part of the world, we can still get
agricultural, support.
Yeah, but it works.
It does work.
I've had people do it.
Yeah.
Now, does it happen a lot? No. But does it work? Yeah. And there's some programs in Worcester where you actually get grant money if you move into certain areas, and
$25,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as sitting down and going to a mortgage site and looking at their calculator and seeing what it is. And I always say to people, you will get approved for more than you should ever spend.
Yes.
Okay? So you need to be comfortable with the numbers and what you're paying out on a monthly basis. A friend of mine, Brad Avergon, who happens to be with Fairway Mortgage, he says, I tell people to take whatever they think it's going to cost, what they're willing to pay, and if it's more than what they're paying today, set aside that extra amount and put it in an envelope. And he says it'll help you build money for a down payment or moving expenses, whatever. But the brilliance in it is, if you end up short, you're just short for yourself. You're not, defaulting on things.
Right.
I think it's a smart strategy, and he did that with both of his kids.
That is very smart, yeah. And I think it takes this market and the world today, to your earlier point, right, how we kind of kicked this off, it takes a certain agility and a certain kind of creative thinking to roll with the punches a little bit and know that the way things were, or the standards that were set before, right, it used to be the 30-year fixed conventional mortgage. that was the gold standard. If a
Right.
seller saw that, you rose to the top of the heap, right? And now, now that some loopholes have been tightened up with lending, first of all, now there are many more programs that make it attainable for people, and can be more aggressive on the rate. Talk to your lender, though, is the point, right? Get
Absolutely.
the actual information to do with your personal profile.
A lot of people that I've talked to, I'm back on the first time buyer thing for a second. I remember one case in particular, lovely couple. He was off fighting a war somewhere and she was out assigned, military family, assigned to find a house.
Yeah.
And I remember going out and looking at what I would call a distressed house. And her dad took me aside and said, "Why are you showing her this crap?" And I said, "Because it's all she can afford.
Right.
She needs some help."
Right.
And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, help arrived, and we were able to get them in the house. And I'll never forget that discussion. But sometimes you need to get help, and that's where a mortgage company can help you with, do this, do that. I talked to someone yesterday that said, "I've cashed in my 401k and I'm going to buy real estate as an investment because I can get a better return on my dollars with real estate than I can a 401k." Okay, if you're comfortable with the risk associated with that, that's a great strategy. Sometimes parents can, dip in or hit their 401k and help kids get money.
You know what? You'll always be our kids.
That's true. I say to people, my kids are in their 30s, and people say, "Isn't it wonderful that they're on their own?" And I said, "They're always your kids,
Right.
no matter what."
That's right.
You always get the phone call, "Dad."
Yeah. I could use at least a sounding board, right?
Exactly.
But it is true though, right? You need a team of professionals, which includes your real estate agent, includes your lender. Over time, it will include your inspector. It will include a lot of other folks who relate to the
Attorneys.
transaction. Attorneys, let's not ever forget them, right? And you
Well,
want a
everyone
team you're
hates
comfortable
attorneys
with.
until you need one.
Yeah, well, you can still hate them and need them, maybe, but I will, not speaking for
I've got
myself.
some that I actually like, but
We're very fortunate to have a lot of attorneys that we work well with. The thing I would say, and it doesn't have anything to do with attorneys, right, who are doing their job, but I will say working in real estate has really underscored the difference between what's legal and what people might expect the right thing to be, right?
Yep.
So that's a conversation we have quite frequently. Yes, this feels wrong, right? Or it feels, yucky, for lack of a better term. But is it legal or is it illegal? That's a different question.
that's where, real estate can have a lot of gray areas.
For sure.
And I, for one, I don't want to operate in the gray. I'll maybe stretch the rules, but I don't want to get the call from an attorney saying this is wrong.
Right.
It's just not right. Okay. So I think that when it comes to, if you're sitting in your parents' basement and you're watching this right now, stick your head out.
Yeah.
Give us a call and we can help you with at least connecting you with a mortgage person and beginning to formalize and formulate a strategy for you to get into home ownership. You've got the nice thing that in many cases where you can live in the basement for a while, so you don't have a time constraint where my lease is up, I gotta move.
Right.
Okay. And if you're in the case where your lease is up and you gotta move, okay, we can make that happen too.
That's it. Yeah. It's never too early. I would say that, before we sign off, that is the one takeaway. I talk to a lot of people who say, well, I didn't want to come to you till I felt I was ready and I had to do these various things. That can be first timers. It can be home sellers. They come to me with a list of work they need to do, they think they need to do on the house, and we say, actually, you're not going to get your money back, right? Let's revisit that. And on the first timers, if you're not ready now, the lender is going to give you the steps on how to be ready next year or in 6 months or whatever your time horizon is. And I tell everybody, you should always be in the real estate market. Because if you're a homeowner and you're watching the market trends, you're going to have a real-time sense of what is my wealth, my equity in my home. I always have an idea of what my home is worth. And that's, if you're not sure, that's a service we provide too. We can come out and talk to you about what your home's worth.
I send out to my clients a monthly report
I love that.
that says, here's what the value of your house is.
Perfect.
Now, sometimes people will call me up and say, that thing you sent me, it's exactly right. Great. And there are other times where they call and they say,
No
that
way.
thing you sent me, no freaking way. Well, the point is, in either case, it's a conversation
That's it.
starter.
Yeah.
And that's where the value is.
Absolutely. Have those conversations early and often.
Closing thoughts?
That was it. Start early and stick with it and just be prepared.
What are you telling your kids? Are you telling your kids to go buy a house?
Of course. I'm telling my soon to be 14-year-old, actually, he needs to shadow us and get in the business. So I'm working it from both angles.
Okay. My kids both own homes, and they. In one case, my son, who lives in Northborough, couldn't be happier and everything else. I think sometimes his wife would like a bigger house, and he's like very comfortable with it, likes the neighborhood and everything else.
Yeah.
My daughter, who bought new construction and all that, she, would always like a different house, but I think she's fine.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy for them, but it certainly was a challenge in some cases to get them into the houses. Siobhan, I want to thank you for coming out and playing today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks all. Tune in next time.